We're live. Okay. Hello and welcome to the fourth episode Loki stream. The others don't exist anymore. We made them all unlisted because these streams have been cursed.
By the
Truly
TVA.
by the TVA. Yes, the TVA. The TVA heard us. Say tell refer to them as evil time cops, and they are fucking up our live stream as a result. We're trying this out. We got a new solution in place, so maybe this one will be functional.
It's already a little more lo-fi than we usually do, but we're just hoping for functional, honestly.
Functional. Yeah, that's really all we're going for here. But because the other three streams are all gone, or whatever, the other streams are all gone now. So we're gonna do, like, before we get into episode 4, we're gonna do just like a quick, I don't know, mid-season recap kind of deal. And go back through the first 3 episodes and just kind of, I don't know, summarize like key big feelings that we had from the first 3 episodes. And then we'll get into episode 4. Our previous streams, we didn't really have an hour's worth of thoughts on the other episodes. So I feel like we can probably kind of rapid fire get through this. So I'm up first, me.
Yes.
All right. Episode 1, Glorious Purpose. The show begins where we last saw Loki on screen during the Avengers Endgame time heist when Loki steals the Tesseract. After he bloops out of New York in Endgame, he winds up in a desert in Mongolia. Before he even has a chance to get his bearings, a portal opens and some weird intergalactic cops show up and tell him that he's under arrest, and they apprehend him by hitting him with some sort of like time taser that makes him move way more slowly than everyone else. They take him back through the portal, and he arrives at a 1970s office building. The vibes are 70s and absurdist bureaucracy, and it's called the Time Variance Authority, or TVA. He's brought there because he is a variant, a person who deviated from the divine timeline, which the TVA exists to protect. Eventually, Loki gets called before a judge, not for the crime of using apocalyptic violence to install a repressive global-wide dictatorship, but for the most egregious of cinema sins, continuity violation. Elsewhere, Mobius, a TVA agent played by Owen Wilson, is even further back in time, investigating a separate mystery in which a variant is killing off the teams of time cops. He is informed that Loki has been arrested, so Mobius rushes back to ask for Loki to be put into some sort of time probation, supervised by Mobius. Mobius asks Loki a lot of questions about why he does the things that he does, and Mobius uses his magic time cop projector to make Loki watch some video footage of his life, including some things that have not happened yet to this Loki, like things that we have seen in the movies post Avengers 1. Including the impending death of his mother. The whole thing feels like much more effective therapy than anything that Bucky got from his actual therapist in the show that had an actual therapist. Anyway, so Mobius leaves the room for a bit, and Loki, of course, escapes. He runs to the evidence room to reclaim the Tesseract. He also finds a bunch of Infinity Stones because they just get a lot of those in there. Loki is unable to use the Tesseract, so he goes back to the interrogation room to watch more footage of his life up to his death. Mobius returns, and Loki realizes that he will not be able to go back to his timeline. And Mobius is like, no, and I says, I can't offer you salvation, but do you want to help us anyway? Like, that whole exchange, I was just like, if you can just help us because it'd be cool. And Loki is like, why though? And Mobius is like, because the variant we're looking for is you. Dun, dun, dun. And that's episode 1. So really quickly, just spend a couple minutes on each one. Did you like it?
I did enjoy it. So I enjoyed it more than I liked anything that ever happened in Cap's Friends, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It wasn't Wanda tier to me. And some of the like issues that I have with the character of Loki just continue to exist for me. So it's always like a hurdle that I'm getting over. I'm like, man, I really don't like this guy, but I'm trying to like the show. And that's where I forever am. But the answer is yeah.
She spent the actual first stream saying that she liked it, but like just talking about all the reasons that she didn't like it. It was great. Lost to time. I heard it. It was just for me, which is fine.
The good news for everybody else is probably that they don't have to hear it, because it truly is lost to time now. I can't even begin to tell you what I was complaining about.
It's mostly just Loki. Yeah, it's that. It's the Loki-ness of it all. I really liked it. My immediate reaction was that I was getting strong Maniac vibes. And this is very much in the sort of, just like very weird sci-fi that I am like fantasy sci-fi, very, very light on the sci. I don't give a shit about that. I just want like weird. And this is doing that. This said that's what we're here to do. And I was really into it. I appreciated there were a couple things in this episode too that stand out to me as moments where, I don't know, I appreciated like grappling with some of the Loki-ness of it all. Like there's a bit where Mobius is like, talking about all the people that Loki has killed, and he's like, this doesn't feel very mischievous to me. And I don't know, I appreciated those bits. And I also just, I don't know, the sort of setup of like, this is this character removed from the timeline, so like it's not like he is inherently not the character, right, like that like we've seen elsewhere. And I don't know, I find something kind of interesting about that, just from a storytelling perspective, though I agree that it is not Wanda tier. It is absolutely better than anything anything that we saw in Cap's Friends. So the only other thing that I have in my notes from our first conversation is that you talked a lot about the Doctor Who vibes, and I want to point it out that you said this in our first conversation. This is really like the main thing.
The hipster vibes are real, but yes, immediately the Doctor Who vibes just, kind of slapped me in the face there, and not in a bad way, but there's just something, so like the time travel, the timey-wimey aspect of it all, and you have like this dark-haired man leading the whole thing. And I think here I got that vibe, but it was in episode 3 that we spent like even like a bigger portion of the episode talking about how much this reminds me of Doctor Who, and particularly because you are really enjoying this and you hated Doctor Who. So.
That was once you started talking, I was like, I remember now why I wrote this down. Yeah, that was the Cliff Notes version of that conversation. I think that there are a lot of things about the manner in which I first came to Doctor Who, watching it for recaps, just like where I was at in terms of the kinds of things that I liked. This is basically 10 years ago now. Maybe not quite that long ago, because this wasn't maybe like 8 or 9 years ago. It's long. It's a while ago. I was like, because the blog just turned 10. But like it was before I moved to Missoula, so it's been a while. 7 or 8 years ago. And so like my media interests were a little bit different then. We were recapping it, which I think was like just not a good choice, for especially because you and Kirsty were already so all in on the show, and that I don't know, just like put me in a weird spot. And what was the other thing? Oh, the fact that it's a kids show, the fact that it's just sort of like a low budget kids show, especially that first season. I don't know how much that changes going forward, but that first season is very much a low budget kids show, and I was just like, I don't know, that was not the vibe. And so like some of those things are just like automatically adjusted. And as you pointed out, the key difference in like what you and Kirsty were experiencing versus what I was experiencing is that like you already had an attachment to this character, which I did not have, just going into it. And so I have that now, right? So I have the sort of pre-existing, I know who this guy is. I'm ready. Right. That I didn't have with the other thing. So I don't know. That's my sort of like armchair theory on why it hits differently, but I don't know. I haven't seen Doctor Who in like 6 or 7 years, and honestly I don't care enough to change that. So sorry to everyone who loves Doctor Who.
I'm gonna find a way to one day like make it so we have to give it a chance. I don't even watch Doctor Who currently. I quit sometime during 11, so I have like faraway intentions of finishing it out one day, but I'm not gonna make you watch something I'm not even watching anymore.
Yes, fair.
I think not to spend too much time here, but I think something that we should clock here because it kind of changes as we move through the episodes is the TVA vibes in this first episode were really interesting because, immediately you get the sense of like, okay, time cops, but I don't think it was as nefarious as we feel it later on. And in this episode, they do a really good job of introducing like the aesthetics of it all. Like you get Miss Minutes and you get like that absurd bureaucracy, I cannot say that word, sort of thing. And so you're like having fun with it at first in a way that makes like the later like creeping feeling of, oh no, this is the bad guy, like hits so well. And it's something that I can now appreciate in retrospect. I don't know what I said about the TVA back in that Lost to Time stream, but now looking back at it, I'm like, ooh, this is such a neat way to introduce this like entity to us. And all of those like little weird things that in the moment I was like, okay, that's just a weird thing. Now I'm like, I like it.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. We made some like ACAB jokes, but we talked a little bit basically about like they're fucking time cops. Like so like I don't know. Seems a little like sus, but yes, I totally agree. Like that I think that they do a good job of setting it up. That you're like, yes, Owen Wilson's Mobius is so you're like, yeah, this is our entry point, of course. The little cartoon clock lady, sure.
Yes.
They do a good job of setting that up before getting to like, no man, this is fucked up. But anyway, I guess moving through our setup, episode 2.
That me. Okay, episode 2, The Variant, and we start in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Ooh, words today. At a run fair, and a bunch of hunters portal in, and they get to looking around, and because they've tracked a variant there, and they follow the variant into a tent, and the variant presumably mind controls one of the hunters, C20, into attacking the rest of them. The variant then steals one of their temp pads. It's really funny because I'm looking at my notes when I didn't know the names for anything, so I put one of their time reset doohickeys. I now know that is called a temp pad. And the variant grabs C20 and takes off through a portal. Back at the TVA, Loki is training with Miss Minutes, learning about Nexus events. When Mobius comes in and tells him about the attack. So they gather a team to go and investigate. And everyone is pretty sure Loki is going to double cross them. So they're like, Mobius, what you doing? But Mobius wants him there. So at the run fair, they head into the tent. But before they can really investigate, Loki gives like a long time wasting speech trying to convince everybody that he knows what the variant is up to and he can help, but he wants an audience with the timekeepers before he helps. Mobius decides that Loki is lying and calls off the mission because they just wasted a bunch of time. They just reset this particular timeline and go. Back at the TVA, Mobius reports to Renslayer, and they're like, man, that Loki really is untrustworthy, or whatever. But Mobius insists that Loki can help them, even though he just keeps double-crossing them. Mobius tasks Loki with looking through all of the Loki files to see what he finds. And while reading through them, Loki learns about Ragnarok and how most of his people are dead in the future. He sheds one little tear, but then he gets inspiration and he shares his new theory with Mobius. And it's that if you go to an apocalypse event and mess around with time there, it wouldn't matter because then the apocalypse would just delete everything and the TVA wouldn't be alerted to anything amiss. So Loki thinks that this is how variant Loki is hiding. So to test this theory, Loki and Mobius travel to Pompeii right before Vesuvius erupts. Loki starts causing mischief. He shouts at everybody that he's from the future and they're all about to die. And then the volcano erupts and no variant is recorded. So Loki was right. Somewhere in here is a long speech from Mobius about how much he loves jet skis. I'm very tickled that I included this in my recap because it's like just a little like side throwaway thing, but it really impacted me. And Loki replies with what may be one of the thesis statements of the show: no one is bad. No one bad is ever truly bad, and no one good is ever truly good. And I wrote here my notes. Thanks, I hate it. I have less hate for it now, but past me, this truly is like a timeline thing. We have really taken the theme of the show to heart. So past me really hated it. Mobius remembers the kablooey gum that the variant gave one little kid, and I don't know if it was in this episode or our previous episode. And kablooey was only sold for a short amount.
It was in the previous episode. It was in the first one. Yeah.
Yes, we see the variant hand like a kid some kablooey gum. So Mobius remembers the gum, and then the gum was only sold for a short amount of time, so they cross-reference those dates of kablooey gum with apocalyptic events, and boom, they go track down Loki variant, and Loki variant is in Alabama 2015. Loki gets approved to go on this mission. Even though he might betray them all, we go over this again, but he gets approved to go on the mission, and off they go to Alabama to a superstore where a bunch of people are trying to ride out a hurricane. Funnily enough, I never finished these notes, and I didn't remember that I didn't finish these notes, so we're gonna wing it again. Hunter B15 wants Loki with her as they wander around the store to keep an eye on Loki, and they come across a man who's like randomly like, yeah, I'm just shopping for plants in the middle of this hurricane, so they can tell that he's lying. And then that the variant can actually jump from person to person and sort of like possess them, I don't know, take their body or whatnot. So that happens until I can't remember, Loki and the variant end up alone, and then we get our first view of who this variant is in their own body, and it is actually Lady Loki. And Lady Loki opens like a portal and escapes through the portal, and then Loki makes a
thing, she bombs the timeline. That was like her big plan, was that she sets off a bunch of like deletion things. I don't actually even entirely understand what she did, but she bombs the divine timeline.
Yes, she bombs the timeline, opens a portal, and Loki decides to follow her through the portal. End of episode. So, did you like it?
Yes. I mean, I had a ton of fun. This one, I appreciated. There were some little things in, like, I don't know, the rocks cart, like the reference to that. I appreciated Roxxon, reminding me of Cloak and Dagger, I guess, is just, I appreciated that experience. And I like the whole the mystery of like Sylvie sort of jumping from person to person, I thought was really, really interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I think that like the setting was good, and it did a good job of expanding the scope. Like, so we spent all that time in the little like 70s office building, whatever that is, the TVA, and then now we're kind of going to start like actually going out into different times, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think I have to be true to past me and say that I liked it, but I had more issues with this one, apparently, as I'm reading through my summary. I think my problem in here was a little bit more with pacing and how this one, especially the first half, seemed a lot slower. And we got like multiple of these like longer drawn out, like just speeches. There was a lot of speechifying in this, and a lot of like the repetition of like, Loki might betray us. No, but we want him on the team. And that like was like happening multiple times. And so when we got to the end at Rock's cart, that was exciting. Like that whole exchange, the jumping from person to person, like I enjoyed all of that. But the beginning chunk of this was so much of like sitting around and talking that I had not built up enough goodwill towards the show to really endure it. In episode 2, I was just kind of like, a little more lukewarm on this than I was the first episode. So, I thought it was fine.
I mean, in general, I do think that like the show has like the pacing is it's just like a little bit weird. Like and I don't know. To me, like it feels in keeping with what the rest of the show is in this way that like I would not. I don't know. I would defend it against saying that it is bad, but I understand it as a reason that people wouldn't like the show. I guess is sort of like that's where where I am, like where I am with the pacing on the show. And I think that this is true. We're gonna bring up pacing again in the next one.
Yes, and you're right. It's not like bad pacing like Captain and the Winter Soldier, which I think just absolutely messed up its whole storytelling with what it did with pacing. This is just something that it is very almost character focused. Like you have to like Loki if you're going to sit there and listen to him wax poetic on being Loki, which is a problem for me. But also pacing wise, if you're telling sort of like an action adventure story, it does slow things down a considerable amount when you have these moments. So that was my issue with episode 2. But otherwise, good.
Yes. I think we had more things, but I don't remember what they are. So I guess
onward.
We'll move on. All right. Episode 3, Lamentus. This episode starts with C20, who was the agent who was kidnapped and found in the last episode, and Lady Loki, whose name this is the episode we learned that her name is Sylvie, and I immediately was like, I'm going to call her Sylvie in my notes. Yes, good. I too am having an experience as I look at my notes. So we start with C20 and Sylvie hanging out in a bar, drinking margaritas. They're both dressed like normal Earth humans, I guess, on a girls' night out. Eventually, though, Sylvie asks a really pointed question about the timekeepers, and C20 gets really confused. And then the bar scene resets, and Sylvie tries again. Eventually, we see Sylvie standing over an unconscious C20 in the rocks cart, in the rocks cart at the end of the world. And this is what C20 meant about giving up the timekeepers when the TVA found her. We cut from there to Sylvie arriving at the TVA to carry out her like big grand plan. There's a lot of fighting of time cops, and the plan is eventually fucked up by Loki, who just like really wants to chat, but Sylvie is very busy right now. Things get dire, and Loki quickly time zaps them out of there with the magic space time remote, the tempad. The tempad that Sylvie has been using to apocalypse hop. They wind up on a moon in the future that is about to have a planet crash into it. Sylvie says that this is the worst apocalypse that she's got saved on her tempad. And like, I don't know, man, maybe she should have deleted that one a while ago, Anyway, so they fight a bunch and they reach an uneasy truce because Loki has hidden the tempad. So Sylvie needs him and he needs her because also the tempad, the battery is dead, and only Sylvie knows how to recharge it. The rest of the episode is basically a like frenemy road trip. Again, it's slower. It's mostly just them like hanging out. They sneak onto a train that is headed to a shuttle meant to take people off the planet, and Sylvie's likeliest bet for a power source that is like strong enough to recharge the tempad is that shuttle. Loki talks a lot trying to get her to open up, and we learn very little about her, but we do learn that she has no memory of her mother and that she has been running from the TVA her whole life. We also learned the most important thing in the episode, which is that Loki is now cinematic universe canonically bisexual, the first actually canonically queer person. Here I wrote, Russo brothers, go fuck yourselves challenge.
Still hold strong the sentiment is.
Yeah, and like, you know what? I still do feel that way. That's true. Anyway, Loki gets really drunk and makes a scene, and they get thrown off the train, breaking the time remote, the tempad in the process. The new plan to continue walking to the shuttle because I guess they're like really close to the shuttle when they got thrown off, which is convenient, and make it onto the shuttle, and like that like stop it from like blowing up. Sylvie informs Loki that like in the actual apocalypse, the way that this happens, the shuttle doesn't actually make it off the planet on the divine magic timeline. But the two of them are like, you know what? We weren't here. It'll be better now. So on their way to the shuttle, we also learn that the time cops were not, as Mobius believes and told Loki, created by the TVA. Rather, they are all variants who have basically been brainwashed into being time cops. So just in case there was any doubt that the TVA is definitely the actual villain here, brainwashing, kidnapping. Loki and Sylvie fight their way to the shuttle, but they are too late, and the episode ends with the shuttle blowing up. Dun dun dun. So, did you like it?
Yes, I did. Again, pacing I think was my little one hang up at the beginning, but I think I like this one better even with a slower pace because I like the dynamic between Sylvie and Loki, and I like the actress. And I think that it was actually in episode 2. This is one of the things that we didn't mention, but I ended that live stream by saying that if it ends up that the TVA are bad cops and like Sylvie and Loki are actually, trying to save the world from like their evil rule, that I will really, really like that sort of switch. And so at that point, we kind of like knew that something was off. But in these next couple episodes, you see really how nefarious it is that they are like resetting timelines, kidnapping people, and now like brainwashing people to work for them. So that moment of like confirmation of like, yeah, I knew ACAB, and also go Sylvie go, like that was really satisfying the way that they set it up. So I enjoyed those pieces of it, as well as like the dynamic between the two Lokis.
Yeah, we talked about that too. After the episode 2, we talked a little bit also about like the way in which it is sort of the most like fitting and appropriate way that you have Loki like save the universe or whatever, that it's also something like very chaotic and destabilizing, like that they're gonna destroy the TVA, destroy the divine timeline, something whatever, something along those lines, but then like that will set off Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I guess. I don't know, but bad things set off something,
right.
And that's also sort of like the in the little cartoon that he has to watch, explaining the TVA's stated purpose, even like their justification for their own existence is like, it was really bad when there was a lot of chaos, and so now we're fixing it with fascism. And you're like, okay, like you had me and then you lost me. Like, okay, like it was bad. You're trying to like correct the timeline, but then like you're doing it by being fascist time cops, and then I am not into it. So yes, Sylvie and Loki blow it all up. Great.
Yes,
good.
and you're right. That is like
plan.
the best way to set up a villain for somebody who has been a villain is you start them with something that's like, oh, you're not wrong, I get it, and then do it in the worst way possible. So then you have this like villain who's being a hero, but probably in the worst way possible. Like that matchup, amazing. We love to see it.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I also really enjoyed this for exactly the reason that you said. Like the dynamic between Loki and Sylvie. I think I don't know. I think that their banter. I feel like your feelings about this episode are really gonna like live and die by how you felt about that banter. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed their dynamic. I as my recap says, I enjoyed that conversation on the train a great deal. I liked sort of the touches of their different magic too, like the way that they get onto the train. We have a bit of Loki dressing up and doing that, and then Sylvie kind of uses her like more powerful enchanting magic, superior Loki magic. And like I enjoyed that whole dynamic in this episode. And oh shit, I just remembered something that we talked about, and I like lost the thread in the middle of saying that.
It was maybe the Asgard stuff. No?
Oh,
No.
no, it wasn't that, but yes, I did that also. That too. That too.
Yes.
Yeah, on the train, on the train, we get to see Loki. There's this bit where, Loki gets drunk and he is like acting very Thor-esque. He does he throws the glass down and shouts another. And like, we talked on the stream last week about how like there is something like relatable about this, in that anybody who has ever been sort of like transplanted in any type of way, when you are with, like, when Loki is home, when he is in Asgard, he is like the least Asgardian. But like,
Mhm.
you remove him from that context, and like, and and he's like trying to connect with Sylvie and whatever, and like all of that, it like makes so much sense that all of a sudden, the Asgardian energy is like ramped up in
Yes.
Loki, and I love it.
Yes. Agreed. Anything else about this episode?
um, there was something, but I will just move on, and I'll see if I remember it later.
All right, so that brings us a real time to episode 4, the Nexus event. So we start in a flashback and we see the moment when Sylvie gets abducted by Renslayer and brought back to the TVA headquarters for trial. She's a cunning little tyke though, and she ends up stealing the tempad from Renslayer and escaping. So back on Lamentis 1, Sylvie shares a bit about how she does remember Asgard a little bit. We just watched that sequence, but she has had to spend most of her life running and hiding and being caught up by the TVA until she figures out the bit about hanging out in apocalypses. So she's grown up all her life at ends of the world, ends of the world. So that was a feelsy thing that I was like, oh man, we've lived through this past 2020. What this felt very apocalyptic, would not want to do again. The TVA can't find Loki and Sylvie until something really branchy starts branching on Lamentis 1. And so they find them there and bring them back. Loki gets put into a time loop prison, during which Lady Sif repeatedly punches him. Moby Moby wants to interrogate Sylvie, but Renslayer won't let him. So instead, he interviews interrogates Loki, and Loki starts off by lying a bunch. So Loki, pretends like he's the man with the plan. He was, orchestrating it all, and Sylvie is just a pawn in his scheme. But Mobius sees through his lie, and he also kind of figures out that the big branch on Lamentis 1 happened because Loki and Sylvie were connecting romantically, which was news to me when I watched the scene. I was like, they just looked like they were holding hands at the end of the world, but sure. We'll talk about that more, I'm sure. Loki tells Mobius that he's actually a variant with his memory wiped. So Mobius has kind of had enough of this whole thing and dumps him back in the time loop prison, but we see that Mobius looks rattled. Mobius goes to see Renslayer to close out the case, and he tries to ask questions about C20. C20, we're told, is dead. Renslayer says that something went wrong with her and she's dead. And then he questions why he wasn't allowed to question Sylvie. If he would have been able, it would be natural that he would do that. And Renslayer tries to play on his feelings for her a little bit, but we see that Mobius is still dubious, and he ends up stealing her tempad when she isn't looking. B15 grabs Sylvie and pulls her through a portal back to Roxcart, and when and kind of confronts her there and says that when Sylvie was in her head, she saw memories of like a time before the TVA, and she wants to know if that was real. And Sylvie tells her that they are real memories and shows her more of her life pre-TVA. So B15 is down for the cause. She's like, okay, I am in. So Mobius finds like a quiet corner to explore Renslayer's tempad, and he pulls up information on C20. He watches like an interrogation or like an interview video of C20 saying that she also remembers her previous life, her life before the TVA. And Renslayer ends the interview and the tape So Mobius heads back into Loki's time loop prison because he believes what Loki is saying now. So the team's back together. Loki and Mobius are friends again, but they walk right out and right into Renslayer waiting for them with guards. Mobius tries at first to play it off, like, oh no, I grabbed your temp pad by accident. But then it's clearly not working. So he just admits to Renslayer that he knows that he's a variant, and Renslayer prunes him. So Loki gets escorted out by 2 guards while Renslayer goes to see Sylvie, who has wet hair now. She's still in her prison, but she's like clearly been in the rain. So Renslayer knows someone came to see her, and they put out an alert to capture B-15. Sylvie and Loki are brought to the timekeepers. On the elevator ride there, Sylvie wants to know if Renslayer remembers her. She also wants to know what her Nexus event was, because it must have been really important, but Renslayer only smugly says that she doesn't remember. So they are brought before the timekeepers. The timekeepers ask for last words before they kill the Lokis, but B-15 arrives and unchains the Lokis and gives Sylvie a sword so that they can fight their way free. Sylvie faces off against Renslayer and knocks her out. Loki handles the rest of the guards, and then Sylvie uses the sword to behead one of the timekeepers, revealing that they were just androids in a room with a smoke machine, apparently. I don't know about the smoke machine. That is me inferring. But they are definitely androids. Loki prepares to tell Sylvie something big, like he's about to give some sort of confession, but before he can, Renslayer prunes him. Sylvie easily disarms her and holds her at weapons point, demanding to know everything. And then the end, like the after credit scene, is of Loki coming to. He's not dead, and when he looks up, he's got 3 other variant Lokis before him, and one's a little kid Loki, one's an older man Loki, and another guy, it's a black man Loki, but he's holding Thor's hammer, if I saw that correctly. So super exciting, more Lokis. Wait, that is actually not exciting for me, but it could be. I don't know if Nicole is frozen or if I'm frozen. Who was frozen?
No, it was me. I was out.
Okay, so I finished my recap.
Great. I was like gonna look back over your notes, but I was like, nope, she was describing the credit scenes, so there's nothing for me to read, really.
No. That's it. I just said more Loki's very exciting, and then I edited myself and I said, wait, that's not actually exciting for me. But
it was an alligator, though. I mean,
oh, I didn't. Yes.
And Kid Loki, which you brought, yes, that has been all through these the live streams. You have pointed out all of the nods to Young Avengers. So Kid Loki also on that list. So you know.
That's exciting. It is exciting. I am surprised that I was excited by the prospect of more Lokis.
Yes.
All right. So, did you like it?
This is my favorite episode so far. I really enjoyed this. I have said a couple times now that my enjoyment of this is very tied into how just sort of like chaotic and weird it is, and this is by far the most chaotic and weirdest episode. But also it was just like we've talked a lot about pacing, and this episode was like it was moving, like it was moving along the whole time, and so I don't know, I guess maybe I am more amenable to the pacing complaint. I just happen to like it more. I'm not sure, but like the pacing in this episode I felt like extremely on point, and I really enjoyed all the little revelations and twists. Genuinely gasped when I saw Loki start evaporating or whatever. I enjoyed this. Yes, and I'm excited to see where we're headed.
Yeah, I agree. I have one big thing that weird, and I mentioned it in the recap, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. And I don't know how to feel about the whole Sylvie and Loki thing at all. And I have ideas about where that's going, and I hope I am right, because I think the show was not actually setting up what it says it's setting up. But besides that one like little thread, which I'm confused about, I did enjoy this one the most of any of the other episodes. And I think you're exactly right that the pacing was much, much better. And I had a few of those like gasp moments, but also like just like tense. I obviously knew they weren't going to die in Lamentis one, right? They weren't going to
Right.
go, but I was like, how are they going to get out? How are they, you know, like I was kind of at the edge of my seat trying to like wait for that moment. And so, you know, that, and then when Mobius is pruned, then Loki is pruned, when there are a bunch of androids, like all of these moments that it was just like continuously like, oh my, where are we going? And that's the thing, is that I don't exactly know. So that is actually fun and exciting storytelling, you know?
Yeah, and then like the reveal that, you know, like Renslayer is maybe more of a far more of a threat than I think that like she had been set up as previously.
Yes.
You know, like
Yes.
I think it had been the vibe that I was getting prior to this point was that she was just, you know, like a slightly higher ranking bureaucrat than Mobius, but still just, you know, cog in the machine. And that feels decidedly not true, due to how she was none surprised about the androids.
Yes.
Extremely nonplussed by the android reveal. So
the smoke machine control is actually in her office. So
yeah. So yeah, there's definitely more going on there. And it's funny too, because and to the point of like things kept going in like other directions, to the point to like, you know, my point of where I had how I had been reading the character previously. When she is sort of like manipulating Mobius and kind of playing on his feelings, she says something about like the rarity of like a friendship like theirs, and my first thought was that like their pre-variant lives, that they had something to do with each other, that they were like somehow connected, and like that's what was going on there. No, she was just being manipulative. So oh, I remembered a thing that we this was still not the like the bigger thematic thing that I wanted to talk about, but we talked a lot about the when Sylvie reveals the truth about
yes.
the people, all the time cops and how they're all variants. We were talking about this, and I like jokingly was like, yeah, so that means like, you know, Mobius like probably you know, like got to ride jet skis and stuff, and like, you know, maybe we're going to see him on a jet ski, and it made you extremely emotional, and it was really truly the only thing that I'm sad we lost is that
me tearing up, and then like having to contend with like my cry for that day was over this fictional character not even actually like riding a jet ski, just like maybe in a future.
The idea of Owen Wilson on a jet ski was your cry log entry for the
day. Amazing. And now that he's pruned, but maybe not gone, I'm not convinced that he's gone, because I feel like the emotional resolution there is him on a jet ski. So
yeah, we're not done yet.
Yes. So okay, let's talk about the Loki Sylvie sort of thing. I watched the scene, and so I was like watching before doing this. I was like watching and taking notes at the same time because I needed to do the recap. And I forgot the name of the planet that they were stuck on. So I pulled up the Wikipedia entry to like whatever. And as I was reading it, it said something about like a branching timeline because the two characters connect romantically. And I had just watched the scene, and I was like, nope, what? And I like rewound to see, like, did I miss a kiss? Like, what did I not see? And it's just them holding hands. Obviously, I kept watching, and then we get like Mobius saying in so many words, like, oh, you like her, or you whatever. And I was so confused because my mind was like not there. Like that was the furthest read from my mind. And even as they confirm it later in the episode, or they keep alluding to it later in the episode, I don't know if it's wishful thinking, but I am not convinced that there is an actual romantic plot line here at all.
Yeah, this is so where also part of where she's going with this is she started messaging me like that it's not romantic, and then I was like, I like yes, but like also I agree with you, like yeah, because I had sort of that was precisely my experience. Like I didn't clock it as that until Mobius said it, and I was like,
Yes.
what? Although I mean, I did again, like if you're gonna try to like sell this idea to us, by all means, this like it was your like profound narcissism, whatever. Sure, fine. But like, my feeling at this point is that is a bit of a red herring. Like I just like the whole show is about this guy like having to contend with who he has been and who he would like to be, and like who is he, and like what makes a Loki, and like all of these big identity questions. And so it just seems, I don't know, like I mean, I don't know, maybe it will be just that this incredibly bizarre romance plot, and like I guess I will attempt to withhold judgment until we see it. I hope that that's not what it is, because my feelings about that are not great. Just because it's like but
I mean,
it just doesn't seem like what they're doing is like mostly the thing to me. Like that just feels very inconsistent with what this is doing, especially because we are meant to, like, the show is telling us that whatever happened in that moment caused an epic Nexus event, right? Like that was huge. Whatever it was huge, and it was significant enough that they were, I guess, going to survive this apocalypse without them. Like you know, like so that it clocked on their little scanners and stuff. So I just, to me, like I feel like we're going, and especially with the reveal of like all the other Lokis when he wakes up, I just feel like we're going somewhere else in terms of a like question of understanding of self. Like that, I don't know, that to me just feels much more in keeping with everything else that the show is doing. But who knows, man.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I agree. I will be really angry if it is a Loki falling in love with himself. There's no way that fits into my head, especially if you're like, oh, first by character also is gonna incest with no.
I mean, like, to me, I don't know, the incest, I like, that feels like not, I don't know, whatever. I didn't want to have this like larger, like, is that what it is, whatever, like philosophical cover, but it's just
they
like
the same person? They have the same parents. What are they?
I don't know, whatever, but like the like that thematically is just like, I don't know, like they were together for like a day. First of all, there are just so many pieces of it that it's like it just doesn't make sense to me that that's what it would be. Like even independent, I don't know, like I don't have there is just so much cosmic weirdness going on here that I'm willing to just not address the bizarre philosophical question of what that entails. Fine, whatever. I just, like, narratively speaking, it doesn't feel like it makes sense to me for that to be where this goes. But
and even with like the other allusions and the nods to it later down with the Mobius thing, it really felt to me like he was like almost insinuating or implying something that wasn't there, and it tracks to me that there was some sort of like connection or some sort of understanding passing between these two characters. And like, but what would you call that's the sense that I got, is that whatever the relationship between yourself and yourself is, or like one version of yourself, and like what would you call that, even like what would that be? And sort of like that being reduced to you love her, like that tracks to me. Like Mobius being like, ew, you love her, and Loki being like, I don't know, like that dynamic tracks to me, because you would feel things if you met yourself or some other version of yourself. But what are those feelings? I don't know. So I hope we are going down that path rather than, and I think we are going down that path. I'm hopeful.
Big agree though, that like that's part of what it is that it's opening up this sort of question of just like what is that sensation, like what it, like how do you like what exactly is that emotion? But like reducing it to like relationship parameters of this world in which we do not meet alternate universe versions of ourselves, like
Right.
like the the language isn't there. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
I think I remain optimistic that there is a more interesting like philosophical direction that this is going to take. Um,
Yes.
so yeah.
Oh, anything else?
Let's see, we talked about your cry log. Very important. Glad we got that one on the record. Uh, Lady Sif, I was so excited to see her again.
Yes,
Really
yes, I
appreciated.
agree.
Always, always a delight.
Of
And
all the female characters that were done dirty by like the MCU, but also like Thor's movies in general, like justice for Lady Sif. It is overdue. I am ready for it. I know all she got to do was repeatedly punch Loki in this one, but
I don't
any
care.
way that I don't care. Any way that they want to bring her back, like I'm in. I'm in.
I laughed a lot when I saw that that's what it was too, just because I like we've talked about our shared love for Lady Sif and like
Mhm.
your hatred for Loki. I was like this feels calibrated specifically for you. Lady Sif is just there punching Loki.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I will say it was like devastating. A lot of like Loki's like coming to terms with what a bad dude he was. Like whatever, it doesn't hit me in the feels because I'm like whatever. I appreciate it, and I think that narratively, like it's doing something. But I'm so in the negative with this character that it's like barely moving the needle. But it was like devastating when he has that moment when he's on the floor and he's like, I'm terrible, like I get it, I will always be alone, and she helps him up, and I had a moment of like, oh okay, this is one where he actually affected the loop, but she just repeats, you will always be alone, and it was like the biggest blow of them all. I was like, oh no, my heart.
Yes. Yeah, truly one of the top. I mean, yeah, up there with like when he uh like confronts the fact that he basically gets his mother killed, in terms of like emotionally affecting moments in the show.
Yeah.
I That bit also plays into my conviction that there is more, that this Loki Sylvie thing it like is not that like, and also ways in which like I could see how there is like how that is meant to suggest or signal the possibility of like this is a romantic plot, that's where we're going with this, but like the that also still feels like it's tied back into these questions of like who are you and like what makes
Mhm.
you you, like what are your defining attributes, and like the loop is constructed to manipulate, like it's the moment is like chosen for a reason, and so yeah, I'm
you
not.
you yeah, you saying all of this reminded me that the conversation we get right previous to the branchiest branch of the branches or whatever on Lamentus one is that they're talking about, is this what makes a Loki? We're destined to fail. And Loki says, no, like we do sometimes fail, but we always survive. So there's this theme of like, or this moment of like them coming or like realizing that they are fighters and survivors. And that's kind of what when the branch starts. So I didn't know what exactly happens there, but I think it's much more to what you're saying. Some realization, some like character thing, maybe even like a powers thing or some healing that has happened that would more likely like trigger the branch than like heart feelings. Like I love you,
Yeah.
romantic feelings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, big agree on that, especially because okay, if that's the thing, like what is it like, how do you justify that is like so like cosmic or whatever, because it's not like, I mean, I guess we haven't seen Loki experience romantic love, but like the movies have definitely like confirmed, in like in so many words that like Loki like loves his brother, like right, like that's I don't know, like that's when he dies for for good, or so we thought, for
Mm-hmm.
good. The last time he died,
Mm-hmm.
it was like sacrificing himself for Thor, and like
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I
Mm-mm.
don't. Yeah, I don't buy it.
If the TVA is watching this one as well, uh, just know we don't buy it, we don't support it. And Disney, whoever's cursing our streams, just know.
Just yeah. We have spoken. Uh, well, now I guess that's it. I don't really have anything
Okay.
else.
We did it again. We did
We did
it
it
times
again.
two. Yes.
I don't know how watchable it was, but we were talking to each other the whole time, so I think the conversation is there.
Yes, I think I
uh,
think this was fine. I mean, this is a vast improvement over the last couple of weeks. So enjoy. Hopefully it worked, and we'll try again next week.
Bye.